Welcome to episode 97 of the Toadstool Boardroom for the week of July 10th, 2024. My name's Logan Plant, and I'm joined this week, as always, by Justin Korais. Hi, Justin.
What's up, Logan?
And by a very silent special guest, it's Emio, if you're watching the video version. Emio, who are you? Can you tell us? No, I guess not. That's the question on everybody's mind, Justin. Nintendo dropped this crazy teaser trailer this morning, Wednesday morning, July 10th, that we're going to dig into. But first, I just want to call out, if you're a fan of the Toadstool Boardroom, we'd really appreciate if you head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Subscribe to us over on YouTube. Leave us a nice review over on Apple Podcast or a rating on Apple Podcast and Spotify. It'll help out the podcast a ton if we get more eyes on it through that. So if you like the show, head on over and leave us some feedback, and we'd really, really appreciate it. We've gotten a few really nice reviews lately, so thanks for those. Those are awesome, and yeah, it'd mean the world to us if you'd all keep it up if you like the show, because we want the show to be big, don't we, Justin? Or do you just want it to be small forever? Mini-Mario's pretty good.
Yeah, I want the show to be whatever the show becomes, and I am a fan of our fans and listeners and those folks, so whatever makes you, dear listener, dear watcher, happy, let's stick with that. And if it makes you happy to share the word about the show, please do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Justin, let's get into it, because this was one of the crazier kind of teases Nintendo has made in a really long time. Wednesday morning, Nintendo dropped a trailer with pretty much no description. They just tweeted out this link to their YouTube channel across all regions with the hashtag #WhoIsEmio, and it links to this 15-second teaser trailer over on YouTube, which is of what appears to be a rated M unannounced horror game that all the clues we have right now point to it being published by Nintendo. We don't know if they are developing it in-house. That would be insane, and I'm not sure if that's something that they're actually going to do. But this 15-second teaser trailer opens with the Switch logo and ends with the Nintendo logo, and that's the treatment they usually give games that they're publishing. As for the trailer itself, it's this man wearing a paper bag over his head with a smiley face painted on it, and it's this grainy kind of noir-style film, and the camera has really quick cuts to where he's wearing a different design paper bag over his head, and that's it. And then there's some Japanese kanji on the screen that is translated to smiling man or laughing man, and that's it. That's all we know. Justin, what's your just instant reaction to this?
My instant reaction is this might be the creepiest thing I've ever seen Nintendo do.
Yeah, right?
My goodness. And early July in particular seems like a really interesting time to do this. Mm-hmm. My ideal hope would be that this is a series of things that we see, that we get more little teasers leading up to some sort of reveal as we uncover the face behind the bag. I know that as gamers, the natural impulse to go absolutely down the rabbit hole is intense.
Yes.
Have you done so far, Logan?
I have a little bit. This happened this morning, and I worked a full day, so I found little pockets. I spent kind of my entire lunch break just seeing what I could learn about this when preparing for this show. But yeah, also, I just wanted to start out the conversation saying I think it's very possible Nintendo could fully reveal this as early as Thursday morning. This could just be a 24-hour cycle. So by the time you're listening to this, it might all our questions might already be answered. If that is the case, then I guess this episode will just exist as a fun little pocket of time when we didn't know what this was, but it's also possible that we won't know for much longer what this thing is. And I think that that's what's fun, is that we've talked a lot this year on the show about leaker culture and spoiling surprises and leaving things
Oh my god, do you think that's the leaker under the bag?
They found him. They found Fioro underneath the paper bag.
No wonder he went dark.
Yeah, he can't see. He's wearing a paper bag over his head. And I just think it's cool that Nintendo has fallen into kind of a predictable cadence. They do their direct in the winter, in the summer, and in the fall, and they have huge announcements within them, but that's pretty much the only time they announce huge brand new things. There's some exceptions. Nintendo World Championships NES Edition came out of nowhere. They have other little drops here and there on Twitter throughout the year, but they don't do stuff like this. The only comparison I could think of, Justin, was I don't know if you remember this, in 2019 when they announced Ring Fit Adventure, a week before they officially unveiled the game, they just showed people using the RingCon controller and didn't tell us what it was for. So we just saw people using this weird Pilates ring type thing, and it said, stay tuned for a full reveal a week from now. And that was kind of a week filled of what in the world is this thing going to be? Turned out to be a pretty awesome 10 million seller exercise game. What is this going to be?
I have no idea, and honestly, that's what's appealing about it to me. Sometime another show, have me tell you my Ring Fit adventure story, because it's a little bit funny. Yeah, I don't know, and like this is largely unprecedented, and not just as you alluded to, because they don't really do teases like this very often, but they also aren't especially known for rated M mature horror games.
No.
And what we're seeing right here would fit directly in line with what we see out of like Capcom and the modern Resident Evil games, or even like an A24 film or something, or like Blumhouse or something. It is so creepy and eerie, and they do such a good job with the little bit of grainy cinematography, with the quick cuts and unusual jerky movements and things like that. I think we would be doing a disservice if we didn't ask our guest, Emio, do you have any comments on the subject? He does not.
I guess not. No. Yeah, it's cool. I really am trying not to get my hopes up too much that this is an in-house developed thing. I just think that everyone at Nintendo is full steam ahead on Switch 2 games. I think it's most likely that this is a partnership. This is a game Nintendo is publishing, developed by one of their partners. And I think the most likely one is probably Koei Tecmo, because if you look at Nintendo's history with M-rated games, there aren't that many of them that they have published themselves. There's only a few, and most of those are made up by the Fatal Frame series, which has not always been Nintendo exclusive. Yeah, but it's been a Nintendo series for about a decade now in terms of Nintendo funding these games, co-publishing these games, backing them financially. There was Fatal Frame Mask of the Lunar Eclipse on Wii, Fatal Frame Maiden of Blackwater on Wii U, and then a spin-off called Spirit Camera, The Cursed Memoir on 3DS. And I think that was like an AR game that used the camera. I never played it, so I don't know exactly. But that is my best bet right now, Justin.
I think that that's a good bet. As soon as you said Tecmo Koei, I immediately thought of Fatal Frame. Yeah, I think that that's a really good call because of the partnership there. I think I'm with you. I don't know that there is a in-house studio that I would immediately peg as potentially creating a horror game. Frankly, if they weren't already working on Metroid Prime, maybe Retro.
Yeah, that's a cool pick.
Could do something like that, but no, I'm with you. I think that is, so we have no inside information on this. This is like purely educated conjecture, but I think that's pretty good educated conjecture.
Yeah, but isn't it fun to think about what Nintendo themselves could do with a horror game? Isn't that really, really fun to just kind of ponder?
I think my favorite running comment I've seen on this is something along the lines of, oh man, the next Luigi's Mansion is going to be lit.
Yeah, exactly. Because that is the closest thing Nintendo really has to its own horror series, and it's not. It's kid comedy horror. It's Ghostbusters. It's not
spoopy at best.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think that knowing how creatively Nintendo has tackled so many other genres, it would be fun to see some of their best minds in Kyoto tackle the horror, a rated M horror game. That's just, it's crazy. But yeah, again, I think that is just kind of a pipe dream. But also, do you think that there being like Japanese language in the trailer, do you think that kind of confirms this is Japanese made? Because that is kind of what that would signal to me, but it could be wrong.
Yeah, I think it would be strange for a Japanese company to have a Western developer create a title for them with Japanese characters in the writing. That would be like a lot of going around for no particular reason, I feel like. So I think that that's probably a safe bet. If we're trying to at least narrow down potential candidates, I think that it makes the most sense to start with Japanese companies with a strong relationship with them, particularly ones that do have some kind of relationship with horror and things like that. There's somebody I'm trying to think of. Let's see. All right, dear listeners, give me just 1 second.
You can look at
Shinji Mikami is available potentially to work on
yeah.
something since leaving Microsoft, and obviously his horror chops are indisputable, and so
Yeah,
it could
that's
also be
Resident
something.
Evil creator, and then made The Evil Within at Tango Gameworks before leaving Tango Gameworks, which has since been shut down by Microsoft. Brief
Yep,
history lesson.
yeah, exactly right. The reason why I bring that up is that it could also be something coming from either a development team that's new or that we're not familiar with. Could be something that they're working with specific creators on, something like that. We just don't know at this point, and honestly, that's what is so fun about this.
It's extremely fun, and I think that I don't think it's going to be a Fatal Frame game. I think that that is the safe answer. I think if this was just a new Fatal Frame, which has never been the most popular series, it's always been this niche thing that not a ton of people in the Nintendo audience super care about. I'm not saying it doesn't have fans. That's just the fact. It's a very small series. If it's a new Fatal Frame, I don't think you announce it this way. I don't think you do this sort of viral marketing thing that they're doing with this. If you take a look at their YouTube views right now, this is already nearing 300,000 on Nintendo of America's YouTube channel. It's outpacing everything basically this year, not counting the major first-party announcements from its directs. So Zelda Echoes of Wisdom or Metroid Prime 4, Mario Party, that's all well ahead of it. Those are into the millions. But in terms of the other trailers they just published, this is a 15-second teaser that went up this morning, and it has easily double or triple most other videos on Nintendo of America's YouTube channel. So this little bit of viral marketing that they're doing has worked. People were talking about this. It's Nintendo can just drop a little nugget out there like this, and it's just so uncharacteristic of them to even, not even a horror game, but to have a rated M game. You can count those almost on two hands, how many rated M games they've published in their entire history in the video game industry. It's just a really cool thing that has gotten a lot of people talking. And in an era where they've gotten somewhat predictable with their cadence of announcements, like I was talking about, this is so fun to have just this little drop on an inconspicuous Wednesday that had us talking all day about it.
Yeah, and from me being a Zelda timeline nerd, that I love making obscure connections and trying to imagine what could go together and how things could fit. My hope is that we don't get a reveal tomorrow or by the time you listen to this, or again, I want them to stretch this out a little bit. There is, yeah, I am extremely curious about what other things we're going to see and what directions this is going to take. And in particular, I would love, as somebody who is a old man who loves Nintendo, I would love to see more mature titles, not just on their platforms, but like front and center, heavily promoted, shown, like basically on main, which is what they're putting this on. So that's what I'm hopeful for.
Yeah, so if you could kind of give me your dream for what this could end up looking like, in your perfect world, what does this game end up being?
Oh boy. So that's complicated because here's the thing about horror games.
Yeah.
They scare me.
Yeah, me too.
So I don't like to play horror games. So I'm of two minds. On the one hand, I would like this to be a game that I could enjoy and play. On the other hand, I kind of like this like really Silent Hill-esque creepy direction that they're going, which frankly would largely opt me out of it. So, but I think that's what I want to see. I do. I like, Nintendo is where we saw things like Eternal Darkness in the past and some really legendary titles. And I would love for them to do that again. I would love for them to have a tentpole horror title that you can find on their console and that does something unique with whatever their systems are, however they work, whether it's this console, whether it's the next one. So yeah, I even if it's going to be too scary for me, I hope they go hard on something like creepy and horrible and horrifying, and that it gets great reviews that I'll read and never play.
Yeah, this is a game, if this is truly a Nintendo developed game, it's one that I would have to stomach my way through. I also don't like horror games. I've played some of the Resident Evils, and Resident Evil 2 was that was about as far as I can go in terms of getting to the credits of a game. That's the one where you're being stalked by the tyrant the entire time, and it's just very, very intense. And I've played some other ones also, but it's
RE4 is about the scariest game that I can get to the end of, and that's one that is famously like less scary than most of the rest of the franchise. Also was brilliant on the Wii with light gun controls. So, but that's about as far as I can push on the horror standpoint.
Yeah, I've played things like Until Dawn and The Quarry and Alan Wake 2. So I have played some horror games, but they do get my heart rate up in a way I don't always necessarily like. But I can get my way through one if I really, really want to. Okay, I do not think this is going to happen. Absolutely not. But the question I posed to you is, in a perfect world, what would this be? In a perfect world, this is a Kojima game for Nintendo. It's not going to
complete the trifecta. One title going for each of the big 3 first parties. That would be awesome. I would love that.
Exactly. That was exactly my reasoning. He's making the OD for Xbox. He's making Death Stranding for PlayStation. He's got Fizzant in the works, which is basically the new Metal Gear. What if they were also over at Kojima Productions working on a Switch 2 title? Also, I think this is
Norman Reedus is under the paper bag.
Yeah, it's just him in all of them. He's just in every Kojima game.
Shows up in every Kojima game.
This is a Nintendo Switch game. They opened the trailer with the Nintendo Switch logo. It bothered me that instantly we saw speculation about, is this tied into the Switch 2 reveal? You think this is how Nintendo is going to open the rollout of their next-gen console?
Pulls off the bag, and it's just the new console. That's what's on top of that's what's sitting on the trench coat.
The Nintendo Emio, and it's just a big...
Oh my god, that's the console's name, yes! We did it, everybody. We broke the code. The Nintendo Emio.
That's just the point we're at, Justin, where everything they say people are going to tie to Switch to, and it's not.
Really?
This is a Switch game.
I think so, too.
Pump the brakes on that.
I think that they've been pretty clear about that. But yeah, so I have the YouTube teaser trailer open for it. It has thousands of comments. That went up today. It's got thousands of comments on it. People are loving this. I'm excited that this exists, whatever it is. Yeah.
You go ahead, finish your thought.
I was just going to trail off anyway. Whatever this is, whatever this ends up becoming, even if it doesn't become something cool and great, it is so much fun to be in the moment on things like this. And I hope that this works out really well for Nintendo and they do more stuff like this because I love this stuff. I was one of those people who was around when lead up to Halo 2 and 3 and like the I Love Bees campaign and things like that. Taking marketing outside of just, here's the game, here's the title, here's the date. Like, let us speculate. Let us come up with terrible ideas that are never going to happen. Let us make jokes about what's under Emio's bag. This is fun.
Yeah, it is really, really fun. They don't, again, usually when we see a reveal of a game, it's very close to being done. And who knows, maybe this is very close to being done. Maybe it's something we play this year. Maybe it's something that comes out next year or beyond. Like we're saying, we don't know. And that is a fun place to be at. And you did already have those internet sleuths like trying to look into the source code of the web page of the Japanese website that went up. And basically the only substantial thing they found was that there's a few different versions of this face that randomly show up depending on if you refresh the website, and every time it could be a different one of 3 different faces, and that's pretty much all they found. Yes, there wasn't anything tucked away. There's just it's a big mystery right now. And Justin, to circle back on a point you were talking about earlier, it's cool to see Nintendo diversifying their lineup with a mature rated game. I think that is Nintendo will always be family first, and a lot of us love them for that, and that is absolutely the lane they should stay in. They are extraordinarily successful, and they make some of the greatest video games in the world. But there's room for weird stuff like this, and I think that no matter what this ends up being, this was a day that showed, hey, Nintendo is still willing to do weird stuff. This is kind of, I think people are worried about Nintendo getting safer because of how successful the Switch is, and maybe just kind of falling into a rut with their stuff, but I don't know. If they were playing everything safe, they wouldn't have done this today. It was really cool. And yeah, I think we're pretty high on this, even though it was a 15-second teaser trailer about nothing. It's just a cool thing.
I love it.
Yeah. I hope also when we learn what this game is, I hope that it's not a survival horror shooter. I want it to be a different take kind of on horror. I think that Nintendo, if they are making this game or just publishing it, they usually try to take a different spin on things. And for me, I'm kind of bored of just generic shooting combat in games. I've talked about that a lot, but Alan Wake 2, I think it does some awesome, really creative, clever stuff with some of the live action FMV stuff it weaves into its gameplay and the crazy stuff it's doing in its story. And it's just all wrapped around the most generic third-person survival horror shooting combat that you've ever played. And I just cranked it down to the easiest difficulty to try and just blow through those sections because it's just not fun to me. It's just not really worth my time to just pump bullets into these antler dudes that are running at me. So I hope that whatever this is, I don't know, a horror game without any weapons could be far scarier than a horror game like Amnesia. I don't know if you can really defend yourself.
I was going to say, like Fatal Frame, for example.
Yeah, where you have a camera. Yeah. So, excited to see what this is. Anything else on this one, Justin?
If they don't reveal anything, be prepared for more speculation from me.
Okay, what if they just never reveal anything ever about this and they just drop this?
The spookiest answer of all.
Yeah, and we never learn. That would be unhinged behavior if they did that. Yeah, that would never happen. But I just wrote down the only other game we haven't mentioned yet. We talked about Luigi's Mansion, Eternal Darkness, Fatal Frame, and then Geist on the GameCube. Did you play
There's
that
a
game,
throwback,
Justin?
yeah, absolutely. So that was a cool game too. You were ghost, like Geist is the German word for ghost, and you could basically possess and inhabit like random objects. And if I recall right, your job was to like scare people to a point where I think you could possess them or something like that. It's been a number of years, but very clever, very unlike other ghost-themed games.
Cool.
I'm for it.
Yeah. That was another rated M game on GameCube. One of the very, very few. I've never played that one. I did play Eternal Darkness a little bit last year, and that game, I think we've talked about it on the show before, but with its sanity effects are just super cool, and they're kind of corny now in the present day, but basically what Eternal Darkness would do is your character would lose sanity as it was exposed to more and more spirits and ghosts and monsters, and then the game would start breaking the fourth wall and playing tricks on you. Like, I think the most infamous ones are acting like it deleted your save file. It would do a hard reboot of the game. You'd be back on the title screen. You would proceed through the menus, you'd get to your save files and it would say no save data found, and then it would jump scare you and flash back to the exact moment in the game that you'd been, but your character doesn't have a head anymore. Stuff like that, just really crazy fourth wall breaking stuff it's pretty cool. It, like I said, a lot of it, and especially if you know about it going in, it's pretty corny in 2024, but I think it's a really clever idea. Another one it does is it turns down the volume on your TV back when most CRTs had the same volume bar.
It would literally show a graphic of exactly what they look like. Honestly, the thing that it is most like, going back to Kojima, is the Psycho Mantis fight from Metal Gear Solid, which did a lot of the same things, had a lot of the same ideas. I think that was Silicon Knights, who are no longer around.
Yes.
The same folks who would go on to make things like Two Human and the really crappy X-Men game. But they also, Speaking of Metal Gear Solid, they made Twin Snakes for the GameCube. Yes. Extremely talented folks with some great ideas. Can you play Eternal Darkness nowadays? Is that anywhere?
No, I played it on GameCube. Wow. I found someone in on Facebook Marketplace who was getting rid of theirs, and I traded something for it. I think it was like my Secret of Mana cartridge or something.
Bring
like
that to NSO.
Yeah, they should. They should bring GameCube games in general to NSO.
I know.
So that is Emio. I think he's going to stick with us for the rest of the show, but we're done talking about whatever his mystery horror rated M game is going to be. Let's move on, though, and talk about some big updates for some Switch Online stuff. So you may remember, I thought the funniest announcement of the Nintendo Direct last month was Nintendo Switch Sports Basketball. And it got even a little bit funnier, Justin, because they said it was coming in the summer, and then it's just out 2 weeks after the Direct. Why weren't they ready to give us a release date? Yeah, they weren't. They were right. They were right. But it's just super bizarre. Coming summer 2024. Then they tweeted on the 9th, it's out tomorrow. Okay. So Switch Sports Basketball is here. Yeah. I've played it. We also learned that it's developed by Aiding, which is the developer. They didn't make Switch Sports. They just made this free basketball update DLC. And they previously had made stuff for Nintendo like Kudu Kudu Kududin, Pikmin 3 Deluxe, and Pikmin 4, and now Switch Sports Basketball. So maybe that's an explanation of why this came so much later. They just handed this basketball project to some other developer. Kind of strange.
They just didn't know when 18 was going to be done with it. They just had a vague agreement for summer, and then 18 was like, here you go. And they're like, oh, cool, publish it. So
we'll roll it out now.
How is it?
It's good. It's fun. I actually think Switch Sports gets a pretty bad rap. I think that it's a pretty fair successor to Wii Sports. It's not as good as Wii Sports Resort, which is why I think it gets a lot of hate. And for a lot of people, that era is just gone. That casual pick up and play motion control sports game, that is almost 20 years in the past at this point for a lot of people. But I think for what Switch Sports is, this is a nice addition to it, because one of my criticisms of the base game was that a lot of the sports felt really similar. You had 3 net-based sports with volleyball, badminton, and tennis that all are very similar in how they play and kind of the flow. And then they added golf, and that was a really big update because it's totally different than the other ones. And now you have a lineup of 8 sports for a game I think they charge $40 for digitally on the eShop. Yeah, so it's actually a pretty nice package for what it is. If you're a nostalgic Wii Sports fan, this has actually come kind of a long way since launch, and I think this is a stronger edition than most of the sports, because I also really didn't like soccer in the base game. So I like basketball. It's 2-on-2. And there's also a 3-point shooting contest. It controls really, really well, and you can miss your shots if you accidentally tilt the Joy-Con a little bit too far to the left or a little bit too far to the right. And it does kind of feel like pulling up and firing a shot into the basket. I think that they have kind of nailed that feeling as best they can with the Joy-Con controller. So it feels good, and the motion controls are responsive, and it plays well. The 2-on-2 mode, I'm more mixed on, because like a lot of just games, I guess, it really comes down to the skill level of your randomly matched online partner. And it's 2-on-2, but there's no rebounding, there's no steals, there's no turnovers. If your team misses a shot, or if the other team swipes at the ball and knocks it away, they blow the whistle and you just reset at the top of the key, and the other team gets the ball now. So there's no transition. It's basically just a game of back and forth possessions. And it randomly picks who starts with or alternates who starts with the ball on each possession. So every other one, you're starting with it, or your partner is starting with it. And I played with several people who just didn't pass the ball and would just try and ISO their opponent the whole time and drive to the lane and then miss horribly. And I just didn't even get to touch the ball. But when you're playing with someone, I haven't played it with friends yet, but I imagine that's more fun too. But when you're playing with someone who's actually a cooperative teammate and kind of knows what they're doing and how the game works, it's fun. It's fun to try and break free from the person who's defending you, to get an open look at the basket. And then once you decide you're going to shoot by holding ZR, it goes to a behind the back perspective where you have a direct look at the basket, and then it starts a countdown timer from 5 seconds, and you only have 5 seconds from that point to shoot the ball, and there's a defender in front of you who can jump to try and block your shot. So it's this game of chicken, basically, where you can fake, you can lift the Joy-Con a little bit to pump fake, and then they leap into the air, then you start your shot. It's fun. It's simple. I think that for the first few minutes I was just really not liking how simple it was, but then I remember that's kind of just the Switch Sports vibe. That's what this game is. It's very casual, and once I kind of just accepted it for what it is, I had a good time. I played it for like an hour and enjoyed it, and I probably will go back. So it's a fun addition. I think it is one of the stronger sports, and if you have Switch Sports, it's worth giving it a try. If you liked Wii Sports Resort's version of basketball, this is pretty similar to that. So yeah, I like it. It's nothing that's going to hold my attention for long. I think it's still a funny random addition 2 years later, but I think that overall Switch Sports is a much stronger package than it was 2 years ago at launch.
So if you had to add the next game to Switch Sports, what would it be? What's it missing?
It's baseball. There's no baseball.
Good call.
And we just need that. There's really no Nintendo baseball at all anymore. It just doesn't exist. And Wii Sports Baseball was fine. It was, I don't know, it was never the best. It's just basically
derby.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically.
You don't field or...
You would either strike out or you would hit a home run. That was the entire game.
Pretty much, yeah. So, but it's baseball. That's the one I'd want to see added. I think that if I'm thinking about what else was missing from Resort, archery was really, really fun on Wii Sports Resort. That would be a fun one for them to add. Did you ever play Switch Sports? I can't remember if this is the one you picked up.
Switch Sports, no.
Okay.
I thought about picking it up because of the basketball update. I decided I didn't want to spend the $40 on it.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's how you knew so quickly what the price was, because you looked into it.
Oh, because I literally I looked it up today because I was trying to decide if I was going to get a couple of rounds in, and I was like, nah, I'm good. I'll pass.
Yeah, no, you made the right call. If you don't have Switch Sports at this point, I think you've just decided you don't need to play Wii Sports again. But one of my friends who I actually still play Switch Sports with somewhat regularly, it's in our rotation of multiplayer games. We're going to play basketball in a couple nights, and he's one of those Wii kids, super nostalgic for the Wii era and loves Switch Sports. So there's definitely an audience for it. I also want to say, I feel like this is still a really active online community. I find matches, no matter what sport I'm playing, instantly. Just right away. And granted, you only need between 2 and 4 people, so they're not trying to fill a whole lobby. But still, for a game that's 2 years old that is fine and not some huge Mario Kart 60 million seller hit, I'm pretty surprised at how active the Switch Sports community still is. And they still really support it with basically a battle pass. They add new cosmetic waves every couple months that they're like bingo cards. Every time you play a match, you earn experience points to level up. Every time you level up, you unlock a random cosmetic from the bingo board of your choice, basically. So there's a lot going on in Switch Sports.
You know, we kind of talked about it before, but Nintendo is low-key one of the best people when it comes to live service.
Yeah, depending on the game, yes. Something like Mario Strikers Battle League, they fumbled the ball pretty hard. But something like Switch Sports, surprisingly, it's pretty well supported.
Switch Sports, Splatoon, Mario Kart, some other games we might talk about. Like, they're developing a strong track record.
They are. I'm excited to see how Emio is a live service horror game. That's going to be a ton of fun. So that's Switch Sports Basketball. Play it. Let us know if you did. toadstoolboardroom@gmail.com. Next up, another Nintendo Switch Online game that got a bunch of updates. F-Zero 99, and this was, of course, exciting to me. It broke the night we recorded last week, so we just missed this one. But this is the version 1.4 update. It's live now, and it has a ton of updates with star rivals, which are computer rivals that you try to beat in the race. Festival tracks, expanded team battles, more achievements, more weekend events, and emotes, which are really cool, kind of the comic booky hand-drawn style from the back of the box of the first F-Zero game. So really, really cool. But I played the new content. It's more F-Zero 99. It's nothing super substantial, really worth talking about. Just some new cosmetics to unlock, some new stuff to do. The bigger conversation, I think, is how great of a sign it is that this is still being updated almost a year after launch, Justin.
Yeah, I was going to mention that to you. I don't know where you're at with it, but I felt like it was done. I felt like they had done what they set out to do. They had frankly supported it a little more than I had expected. And then when I saw this announcement, like I shared it in our Discord immediately because it was a pleasant surprise. And I honestly think that both of those things can be true. I think that maybe it strikes me as though they had a finite plan for support. And this, to me, looks like it had earned more support than maybe was initially planned this far after launch. And I think that's a really good sign, not just for the continuation of F-Zero 99, but for the F-Zero franchise in general. This is a game that has gotten more than a year's worth of support and resources and development personnel and money. That's a real development cycle that we're seeing right there.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it. There was that time, I think it was in February or so, and this was about 6 months after launch. It came out in September, where they said this is the final content update for F-Zero 99, and they added, I think, mirror mode was what they added then. And they've done 2 or 3 since then. It's just kept going. So I think that proves it is internally surpassing expectations, and that is super exciting. I don't play it that much anymore. I played so much the first month or so, 30 hours in the first couple weeks. And then I put it down. I'd come back for the updates, and that's kind of the cadence I'm in with it. But I did play the new content. Yeah. I can't win anymore. I can't win races ever anymore. So in one race, actually, I got 4th place, and I was like, okay, that's pretty good. And then in the results screen, I see the levels of the people who got 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and they are 3-star prestige level 99. I think that's the max level you can get to. So that is up to level 104 times. I'm level 52, and I've played this game for 40 hours. So the people who are winning these races are professional. Yeah, they're the pros, the F-Zero pros. So I'll take it.
Sitting there at home in their actual jumpsuits.
Yeah, yeah, and they've rigged their F-Zero AX arcade machines to play F-Zero 99, so they're in there and they're turning.
That's the dream right there.
Yeah, I know. I need one of those arcade machines. They're so expensive though. We're talking like $15,000 expensive. Like, never gonna happen expensive.
Maybe for Christmas, but I do think that you're a perfect example though of what they're trying to do with stuff like this. Is they have those for X Prestige 99 folks that have clearly never stopped playing, possibly don't even sleep. But
yes.
There's also fans of the series or what they've done here who have had a good time but have moved on to other things, and every time they drop an update like this, you come back, you play through it, you experience it once again. That's how you keep these things alive. You don't need to sit and just live at your top population in something that is live service. Really, what you need to do is you need to curate these waves. And it's a great time to jump on during these times because you're not the only person who's jumping back in. Frankly, if you are not staying in there all the time, the population of players is probably very heavily tilted towards people who are on all the time, whereas now you can get in with a larger number of, frankly, more casual players and have a good time. It's a great way to just sort of ride the waves on things like this, and I hope they keep that going. Honestly, the thing that this reminds me most of, and it's nowhere near this scale, not gonna move anywhere near as many units because that's frankly impossible, but like this is very similar to how the Mario Kart 8 just kept going and going and going, and every time we thought it was done, it would basically just renew for another loop and do updates. And I think it also speaks to how open-minded Nintendo is to deviate from their plans if they see something that their fans and audience are interested in.
Yeah, which maybe is an important lesson for them, because we did see it with Mario Kart. We're seeing it with things like this. We didn't see it with Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
We really did not. And that was a few years ago.
Maybe their biggest fumble of the generation.
Yeah, probably one DLC pack and then they were done. How have they not gone back to that one?
Yeah.
That's crazy. So yeah, it's a cool thing to see them kind of being light on their feet and making these quick pivots. And F-Zero 99 is awesome. I was so surprised by it last year, by how great I instantly thought it was. And yeah, I hope that this is still them testing the waters for the series. I think that maybe they've been pleasantly surprised by the interest. They know the numbers. They know how many people are playing. We don't. I hope however many it is, it's enough to give it a go on a retail F-Zero game that they actually charge money for instead of bundling in with a subscription service.
It's such good R&D. They can see what modes people like and where they spend their time and what they like to do and what's popular and what's not popular, what hits and what doesn't hit. And, you would at least assume that in a modified Super Nintendo game, the development cost to implement these is less than it would be in a AAA title, and if they can workshop it here so they can make the best package down the road, I think that's a win for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's F-Zero 99. Go check out that update if you haven't been in a while. Another update they dropped right after we finished recording last week is their new 7 NES games join Switch Online, and it is Urban Champion, Golf, Donkey Kong Jr. Math, Mach Rider, The Mystery of Atlantis, Solar Jetman, and Cobra Triangle. Justin, do you have experience with any of these 7 games?
Oh, I do.
I was hoping so, because the only one I've played is I played a few of them, but you go first and then I'll get into it.
Yeah, so as a very old man who grew up with these games, I love this list. Honestly, this is one of my favorite ones they've done in a long time. So I played a ton of Solar Jetman when I was young. It's basically a lunar lander like, but
cool.
It's so much prettier than what the Atari had out at the time. You control a little ship, and you actually navigate some fairly complex little mazes, sometimes above ground, sometimes below ground areas. You are very, very beholden to things like inertia, and it requires a lot of fine control. I loved this a lot when I was young. I haven't had a chance to jump into it, but I've been messing around with that one a little bit. So that game is awesome. Check it out. Golf, to me, is honestly one of the most iconic NES games, at least for me. As somebody
I'm surprised it wasn't on there already.
Well, and so here's the crazy thing. It was on Switch, though, at launch, if you remember.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh, I totally forgot about that.
It was literally baked. Yeah, so secretly, Golf was baked into the Switch itself as an Easter egg that could be uncovered, and it was there at launch, and it seems to be largely because Mr. Iwata worked on it. And it was like a nod to him and where Nintendo had come from. And I think it's since no longer accessible because of like subsequent updates to the console and stuff. And I forget what you had to do to access it, because it was specifically a hidden Easter egg for players to unlock. But every launch Switch launched with Golf tucked away secretly in the code and playable, which is amazingly cool.
Yeah, that is so cool. That little stuff like that is cool, especially for how bare bones the Switch UI was and still is 7 years later. That little detail is really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a fun golf game. It was one of the very first to do things like adopt like a power meter and accuracy and things like that. The music is iconic. It has a Mario character with normal human dimensions. He looks like John Daly or something like that. It's great. It's an awesome game. When I think of the NES, something that my brain connects to really closely is sound effects and what its little sound chip could produce. And I think of the sound of that ball boop, all the time when I think of the NES. Nice. And so I'm enthusiastic about this list. Let's just say that.
I played the 3D Classics version of Urban Champion. That is such a bad game. That is not a good video
I've
game.
never played that. It looks terrible.
Yeah, it's awful. I have no idea why they decided to give that one the 3D Classics treatment back on 3DS. They only did it for 10 or so games, and that's one of the ones they picked.
What a weird choice. Yeah, maybe somebody has a particular desire to try and have breadth of content, and they're trying to cover all their bases. I will say there's that Atlantis game. What's the name of it?
The Mystery of Atlantis?
Yeah, so that's a game that never came out to the West before. I was looking at some gameplay of it, and it looks really cool. It's a side-scrolling platformer that looks really competent, really fun. Mock Rider is basically, if you've ever played Pole Position, it's Pole Position with guns, which
cool.
if that sells you on it, go for it. I think this is a solid list. But again, to me, and don't play Donkey play Donkey Kong Jr. Math, just don't. Solar Jetman and Golf, those were the highlights for me.
Very cool. Yeah, it's a very NES month because next week is Nintendo World Championships NES edition, and we have a fun show planned for next week to celebrate the launch of that. So those 7 NES...
It is going to be the most Justin show of all time because you bust out the NES and I'm all over that.
It's going to be super fun. And yeah, we have a special guest joining us too. We're going to rank all NES games that are on Nintendo World Championships NES edition. I believe.
I can't wait to hear how Emio ranks them.
We'll never know. Yeah, hopefully we know more about Emio next week too, or hopefully not. Maybe they drag this out. Last thing I want to shout out is this weekend, new Splatfest. It runs from July 12th to July 14th, starts and ends at 5 p.m. Pacific time on both of those days. Which would you reserve for a day? That's the theme. The choices are a palace, a theme park, or a beach. Justin, you know the tradition. What's your pick of these 3 teams?
Yeah, so I have easy access to a beach, so I don't need that one. I've been to a lot of theme parks lately. That would normally be my top choice. I've never been to a palace, though, so I'm going to pick that.
Okay, cool. See, if the choice is reserve and it's private, which is how I read the question, theme park all the way, no lines, come on, you can just go on any ride you want all day. That's my pick. But the beach, yeah, we both live on or near the coast. So that's an easy no for us because we've lived over here for the majority of our lives.
The reason I wasn't on the show last week is because I spent the 4th of July on the ocean. So
very nice. How was it?
Hot.
Yeah. We're getting to that point of the year. So, see you on the Splattle field this weekend. I'm going to try and play a little bit for Team Theme Park. It should be fun. And let's wrap up the show now with EGAD's emails. You can always email the show, toadstoolboardroom@gmail.com, or send us your questions on Twitter @toadstoolbr, or drop them in our episode discussion channel on the Toadstool Boardroom Discord. So those are your choices to get your question read on the show. This first one comes from Christian, who says, last week you guys were lamenting how all all we get for collector's editions is steelbooks and pins, and I'm right there with you. That discussion got me thinking about this question. If you could create your own collector's edition of your favorite game, what physical goodies would you include? My favorite game is Smash Bros. Ultimate, and I think that a Super Smash Bros. Champion medal or trophy would be sweet to display. I'm also a fan of Fire Emblem, and I think a mini Fire Emblem shield and or sword replica would be a fun display too. Thank you for considering my question. Of course, Christian, it's a good one. Justin, what do you want to see in a collector's edition?
Ooh, that's a really good question. And I guess it's a question of like how ambitious you can be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, if you watch the show regularly, you know that my favorite series of all time is The Legend of Zelda, and I would love to have something that comes with like a small diorama kit or something like that, like a little, like maybe not quite a Lego kit, but like a small, compact little like Hyrule Castle or something like that I could display and show. So I think something like that would be really cool. Otherwise, I do like when the packages include swag items that you can actually use. So like, you know, if you had a Fire Emblem special edition that came with like Ike's headband or something like that, like just funny little things like that you can put to use. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, for me, I think that the diorama thing sparked a memory of, do you remember the 1,000 Year Door pre-order bonus in the UK? That was that gorgeous diorama. It's a diorama of the stage that battles take place on in 1,000 Year Door.
No, but that's amazing.
Little cardboard paper cutouts of Mario and Goombella and a bunch of enemies, and it was UK only, but so cool. Look it up if you haven't seen it. I think for me, I am very kind of set in the types of things that I like to collect, and I want Amiibo to live on. So if they just bundled the game with an Amiibo, that's all I really
action figure or something like that.
Yeah.
I think specifically for me, if we're talking about what I would like to see out of a collector's edition, is I don't want something that is flat two-dimensional and does nothing. Right, so I don't like a poster doesn't do it for me. He mentions pins, which I think is right there. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like I've got a couple that are kind of neat that are back there somewhere, but I want something that is either three-dimensional or has a function. Like bring back soundtracks and things like that. Like
yes,
I would love to open I've got both of my giant Zelda boxes up there. Like if they had, you know, vinyl soundtrack with them or something like that, I would be extremely on board with that. Or I want to say it was Gears of War 2. I bought the collector's editions of that, and it came with a little RC tank. Like, give me the Mario Kart RC car in the box with the Mario Kart 9 cool. Deluxe or something like that. Stuff like that. Like something different that does something that isn't just that I can't, you know, slip into a folder somewhere and forget about.
Mm-hmm. You talking just sparked a new idea for me.
That's what I do.
Which is, forget art books. I never really like art books, especially the really flimsy 20-page ones that come with a collector's edition. What about a classic instruction manual? What about just a actual detailed with instructions and arts? Yeah, that would be so cool to be in a collector's edition, because we love that stuff. Like if Tears of the Kingdom had a 50-page little booklet that was in the style of a Nintendo 64 one, like Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask, something like that would be so cool.
A little blurb on the different enemies and items and a little description of each region and some like backstory and lore.
Yeah, that'd be really, really cool. I would love that. I also like the idea of vinyl, because a lot of them still include CDs, and I don't know anybody that still really listens to CDs, but vinyl, I have a record player that I use semi-frequently, so that'd be a cool one.
Yeah,
but kind of what I do now is I don't... Zelda and Chill rules. I listen to that all the time. Lo-Fi Zelda album. There's 3 of them. 3 is my favorite one. It's really, really good. But I kind of, now if there's a game I really, really love and want any physical goodies for, there are better options outside of the collector's edition. So you can kind of assemble your own. Buy a copy of Tears of the Kingdom, buy the Link amiibo that goes with it, and then, I don't know, there's really cool art out there that people make on Etsy, things like that you can kind of supplement and make your own kind of piecemeal collector's edition of different stuff that you actually want, instead of the cheap stuff they manufacture and throw in the box.
Yeah, which is what they tend to do.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, yeah, and Nintendo doesn't make very many of them anymore. There was a while they made a lot more than they do now, but Zelda was the first one, I feel like, in a while that got one. I guess Fire Emblem got one, too.
Yeah, of course, then the problem that I have is that I want whatever comes in the Ultra Collector's Edition like I did with Tears of the Kingdom, but I also like my games to all be digital, so I end up buying it twice.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's how they crossed 20 million.
That's how they got me. Yep.
Yeah. I think they get several people that way. So a lot of them now come with digital codes in the collector's edition.
That's honestly what I would prefer. And
Yeah.
I like Chris, who's not dead, is spinning over in his grave because of his dedication to physical media and things like that, I'm sure. But I think there is room for both. And I will say, like, the creating a champion, very cool, thick, full color book, and I love all of the details. To me, that is much more than an art book, right? It has things like concept art, and you can see how things are developed, and it has a little hit like compartment with like a little, what the Sheikah orbs are. I forget.
The blessing, whatever the light blessing.
Yeah, exactly, and things like that. And so like packages like that are awesome.
Yeah, and then I have the. What was I thinking? Oh, the first 4 figures, Majora's Mask, that you can see behind me. Like, that is something that it was $60 or $70, I think. So it's kind of the cost of a collector's edition if you just add what it is on top of the base game. And I like that more than I like anything that has come in a collector's edition in a very long time. So, yeah, I just don't really think they're for me anymore. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see places stop doing them. It doesn't seem like something that happens as often anymore, except for the big releases. I remember in the PS4 generation, it felt like every game got a collector's edition. And I feel like that was just when they were trying to get more money out of these games that were so expensive to develop. And I think that as things have gone more digital, it's kind of changing.
I spent the extra $10 because it was a special edition, and so it came in the aluminum case instead, and I don't know, had like some extra doodad or something. Although I will say, I would love to see again, that was pretty common in special editions in particular back in the day, where they're like making up featurettes. I love that sort of stuff. Like, every year, it seems like we have the cool like Zelda talk at GDC, but like the full on like hour-long behind-the-scenes making of stuff is really cool and kind of a lost art nowadays.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That's a really good idea, because like DVDs have bonus features and behind-the-scenes stuff, and now I haven't bought a DVD in a decade, and you just stream everything, and you don't get that stuff as much. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I am on the fence right now. This is a conversation for another day, but about if I'm going to keep buying physical games on the next console or cap it and go digital. Yeah, it's... You're not at all. You're never going back.
No, I want to say I own maybe 2 actual cartridges for Switch, because I made the decision.
Is it the Zeldas in your special editions?
Yeah, one is Zelda. The other one is Ring Fit Adventure.
Oh yeah, because you have to. Yeah, that thing's not digital.
Yeah.
Did you get the NES special edition that's coming out next week?
No.
Okay.
I resisted the urge. Right, exactly. If the special edition were more special, I would do it, and I would be unhappy, but I would take the cartridge. But I made a concerted decision basically halfway through the Xbox 360 generation that I wanted to transition to digital. And as soon as the Xbox One and Switch came out, I went 100% all in. And I understand the arguments for why people want to preserve physical media. I also think that physical media doesn't do for you what a lot of people think it does, which again is probably a whole topic we can talk about another day. Especially because, with the way licensing works and things like that, it's not as simple as if you have the disc, you have the game. So I'm, other than the fact that I've had to buy extra storage every now and then, I'm so happy I'm all digital, and I'm so happy that I can't lose something or break something or anything like that, and I can always just have it at the ready.
For me, when the PlayStation started doing the install times on PS4 and PS5, that's when I was like, I might as well just download this, and then it's ready to go.
I swear, there were like hour-long install times on Metal Gear Solid 4 on the PS3. Like, you just see the snake there smoking, you just leave. Just come back later.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, so we'll see. I think that I will always buy my Zelda games physically, though, as long as they continue to make them.
They will always trick me into buying 2 of them. I know that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Except Echoes of Wisdom does not have a special edition.
Echoes of Wisdom, I'll probably get digital.
Yeah.
Although, again, if it came with a manual, like just a manual, like that was more than like 2 pages of just legal disclaimer, like an actual manual, heartbeat, I'd buy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hear that, Nintendo? Put a manual.
That's the thing.
Games.
But they can sell it to me digitally for the same price and not have to, make a box and a manual and ship those things and do all that stuff. So they make more money by not doing it.
Yeah, they do. Do you ever do the vouchers? Oh, okay. As someone who was all digital, I thought that you might do vouchers for Nintendo games. Yeah. Because I sometimes am jealous that I still buy my Nintendo games physical in my cop, but I could get $10 cheaper if I just did this voucher thing. Yeah, it's a pretty nice deal.
I buy everything straight from the store like a sucker.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's how it goes. Okay, our last question here, then we'll get out of here, comes from Red, who says, "Hello, Boardroom. I was just curious what you guys think going forward with getting 3 Mario RPGs so close together. Do you think it's going to become successful and we get one every year, every other year, or do you think we won't see them again for a while? Love the show. Keep it up." Thank you, Red. Yeah, this was a topic of discussion on the episode we recorded the day of the Direct, which was the last time the 3 of us appeared on an episode together, so maybe those Boardroom breakup rumors have some credit to them. No, Chris, we should all be here next week. They don't. Chris will be here next week, and Justin will too, but with a special guest who's going to mediate the conflict. So,
Emio.
That's not what it's going to be. So, what do you think, Justin? Do you think that we're going to see a more steady cadence of Mario RPGs after this one?
I mean, not to be Mr. both sides again, but yeah, I think both these things are true. I think it's clear that there's an appetite for RPGs. And I also think it's clear that Mario has 3 different RPG tracks it can take, and I expect we are going to continue to see these RPGs. At the same time, all 3 came out this year, and it takes a while to develop a video game. I don't think there's a 4th studio at Nintendo working on RPGs. I think that's just too much to ask for the Mario franchise. So I think that we're probably at least a couple years away from the next Mario RPG from whatever flavor. Now, my ideal scenario is they would say, hey, all 3 of these are valid and rule, and after Brothership, that team's going to work on the Brothership sequel, and whichever team did RPG, great, let's start Mario RPG 2 for real. And, some kind of follow-up to the Paper Mario series. I would love to see all 3 of these exist, and yes, absolutely transform into an annual cadence, so every year we get 1 Mario RPG. That sounds amazing to me, and I hope that's what we get. But again, we're starting from a point where 2 just came out, and 1's going to be out before you know it. They need time to make new ones. Yeah, Intelligent Systems, they're the developers of Paper Mario. They run pretty clean on a 4-year cadence for Paper Mario games. Yeah, I figured minimum 3 in my head.
Yeah, or Origami King in 2020, and now Thousand Year Door in 2024. So I don't know if they have a new one cooking already, but Nintendo put out a survey in some regions basically saying, hey, which of these 20 elements of all of these games do you like, and which don't you like? Why do you play these games? Would you play a game with this in the future? And it was about unique partner characters and the action command system and a story and just all this stuff, the platforming elements you see in things like, all 3 of them have platforming elements to various degrees. And this is just them testing the waters. It's super cool to see them doing this. Just a kind of subgenre for them that has been dead for a long time. A traditional Mario RPG. The last one was Mario and Luigi Paper Jam on the 3DS, and that game is by all accounts terrible. And then you have to go back a couple more years to Dream Team, which is okay. It's been a long time, basically, since a really great new Mario RPG. I'd say the last one was like Bowser's Inside Story in 2009. It's been a really long time. Have you played Bowser's Inside Story?
I played a bit of it, yeah.
Yeah, that game is really good.
My biggest roadblock is exactly what you think it is with me, which is I don't love playing on portable consoles.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So hopefully you love Brothership, because I've been playing Superstar Saga on my 3DS the last
I'm going to dock that Switch and have the best time with Brothership. I can't wait.
Yeah, I just love the Mario and Luigi series, and now that I have played and finished RPG and going back and revisiting Superstar Saga, which was the immediate follow-up on the handheld string of things, wow, that game shares so much DNA with Mario RPG. It is very much a follow-up to that game, just made by a different team of people. Like, there's a lot that carried over, I think, from it, and it's really great.
Yeah, even folks who don't necessarily share my love of RPG, it's hard to overstate how essential that was for all the various Mario RPG style games that came afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really cool that just exists. I still can't believe those two remakes exist and a new Mario and Luigi exists.
I know.
I'm just super happy about it, and I do think every year I think that's probably not going to happen. I think making a Super Mario RPG 2 seems like a pipe dream still to me at this point. I think it's more likely they stick with their two series that have gone on since, Paper Mario and Mario and Luigi. But how cool would that be?
Yeah, and I think it'll depend on how much RPG sold, which I don't know that we know where it ended up. But honestly,
over 3 million we know as of its first quarter. It was great.
Yeah, and I mean, so again, with the a decades-long refrain of folks like me saying we want to see more of it, again, I hold out hope, and that's it. I just have hope. But as you were talking about these and talking about F-Zero earlier today, imagine going in a time machine back a couple years just to tell our past selves, like, yeah, and then we've been playing a lot. There's been F-Zero, and we've been playing the Super Mario RPG remake, and then Paper Mario, and then the new Mario RPG. Like, they've done so much stuff over the last 2 years. Oh yeah, there's this great Zelda game coming out, like a Zelda game where you play a Zelda, and then like, ludicrous what they've done, and I mean that in the best possible way. And to something you mentioned earlier in the show, the question, are they going to become stagnant and rest on their laurels? That always could happen, but they are definitively not doing that right now.
Yes. And there's a few years in there, I think, in the 3DS Wii U era where they were. Like, just to be straight up, they were.
Oh, totally.
Some of the stuff they put out then wasn't great. They were struggling to develop in HD. They were struggling to support 2 consoles. And some of the stuff that came out was,
frankly, seems like they were struggling to come up with ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was when they things were really safe, I think especially in the Mario franchise in that era, about a decade ago now, and in the time since it has not been that, with things like Odyssey and things like Wonder and things like Bowser's Fury. It's super cool stuff, and now Paper Mario coming back, a new Mario and Luigi RPG. They're in such a good place, and I can't wait for the next gen. What are they cooking? What are they cooking up there internally? They're not cooking up this horror game.
Something with this guy over here.
Yeah, yeah, they're cooking up something with Emio. But that is a wrap. Another episode of the Toadstool Boardroom in the books. We're a weekly Nintendo show here on Thursdays at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you like to listen to your shows, with a video version over on YouTube. You can find the show on Twitter at ToadstoolBR. You can send us an email, toadstoolboardroom@gmail.com. Justin, where can people find you, and what do you want to shout out?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at KOREIS. I also have a really big preview piece that I worked really hard to put together that will hopefully go up by the end of this week over at digitaltrends.com. And if it's not there by the end of this week, hopefully it's up early next week. And then next week, I am heading to TanoCon. So if you're a Warframe player and you happen to go to their conference in Toronto or in the suburbs of Toronto, let me know. We can say hi.
Yeah, my international boardroom meeting.
Mr. Wow. International.
Yeah, big stuff. You can find Emio on Twitter at Nintendo America. You can find me on Twitter at Logan J. Plant. But for now, that's all the time I've got. I got to get back to playing Animal Crossing New Leaf on my Nintendo 3DS. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great week. We'll see you next time right here in the Toadstool Boardroom.